Kamana, Pekino, Takata, or Waikirikiri, Tēnā koutou, Tom. If I can ask everyone to stand for the council information and how to care. Whakatakateho i te uru, whakatakateho i te tonga, kia mā, kina ki uta, kia mā, tara ki tai, e agi ana te hatakudo, he teo, he uka, he hauhu, tiho, mauri ora. It was affirmed today that we as councillors will work together to serve the citizens of Selwyn District. Always use our gifts of understanding, courage, common sense, wisdom and integrity in all our discussions, dealings and decisions so that we may solve problems effectively. Where we always recognise each other's values and opinions, be fair-minded and ready to listen to each other's point of view. In our dealings with each other, let us always be open to the truth of others and ready to seek agreement, slow to take offence and always prepared to forgive. Where we always work to enhance the well-being of Selwyn District and its communities. We will. Today we have apologies for lateness from Shane, and I think Elizabeth is coming too. Can I have a mover and seconder for the apologies? Thank you, Malcolm and Phil. All those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Today's agenda has us with a public forum first, and then we have a public meeting followed by some publicly excluded items, and then we're back and finish with the public part of the meeting with the signing of a MOU with KiwiRail, who are coming in today with a partnership agreement before we have lunch with them. So we will move on, and I have no other items of extraordinary business sharing that have been raised that need to be tabled today. So we'll move to the public forum, and got four speakers. Jens, you're first, and then Kate, and then Kelvin and Rob. So yeah, Jens, if you want to come to the end of the room. It's the right hand button, we'll turn the microphone on here.
Long since I've been here, I've seen this latest arrangement. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, Chief Executive and staff. Important that I flag that I'm here presenting as an individual, not impaired by the Rolleston Residents Association. But Rolleston and Selwyn still flows through my veins, despite of the fact that I now reside 40 kilometres from the district. I return here frequently and have hands in various activities here. Still passionate about the growth and keen to see that no mistakes are made. I've tabled in front of you a submission on the State Highway 1 improvements, which was promulgated by the RRA in July 2022. That submission was hand-delivered to me to Transit's offices in Hereford Street. Copies were emailed to all councillors and the Mayor. I've had no response from anybody, including Transit, since that submission was lodged. Of interest, can we get it up on the overhead screen, or am I supposed to do that as well? Are the plans that you'll see in the back of that document, that helicopter was lifted by one of our attendees at those two public meetings, held one by Transit, where there was 30 people present. The last two.
Did you want to what do you want to share, sorry?
There's a memory stick in there.
Oh, yeah.
The last two.
Last two. So do you want to open this one
Yes,
first?
please, yes. And yeah, one of our attendees lifted his helicopter quite high, which is something I'm going to invite council to do at the end of this address. And brought to our meeting to promulgate our submission to Transit two plans. One of them you'll notice there is a plan very similar to the flyover at the end of Memorial Avenue by the airport. And that was his proposal, and it was the proposal of our submission to put one of those flyovers across the state, close down crossing the road at the state highway, turn it into a cul-de-sac, shift the entrance to Rolleston further south with the Memorial Avenue flyover and all of the other activities underneath the flyover, as you see on Memorial Avenue. Extend Lowe's Road to connect with a new road through the what is currently farmland, and possibly fast track plans for the new housing on the south side of Duns Crossing Road. So if Jason Blair could lift his helicopter and look at some alternative accesses and safer accesses to Rolleston, then I think this council needs to pause the current process, stop the traffic lights at Burnham School Road, Duns Crossing Road. Not needed if you turn Duns Crossing Road into a cul-de-sac at the State Highway and a new entrance to Rolleston further south. It's ludicrous to bring all of that traffic from south into Rolleston down Duns Crossing Road. Absolutely ludicrous. It's not wide enough. It's got houses currently on one side with the fast track government proposal for housing down there now. Things have changed since that roundabout was designed there. It's a waste of money, in my view, putting a band-aid traffic lights at Duns Crossing Road when a whole new alternative access should be created. You'll also see in those two plans there, the second one is there's the overhead now quite clearly showing the, I call it the R1 Memorial Avenue flyover, and the new extension of Lowe's Road. Another opportunity for further right in and right out turns into Rolleston was again Mr. Blair's suggestion that Rolleston Drive South could have a double lane roundabout the size of the one at Pegasus. And again, this helicopter view not at that sized roundabout into Rolleston Drive South. So again, that would be a third opportunity for a right in and right out from Rolleston if that happened. And more importantly, and I won't get onto it because the current state flyover, in my view, is ridiculous. When you get to Jones Road and you want to go back, head north on the motorway, you've got to turn right onto Hoskins Road and cross a railway line. It's going to be a huge bottleneck there as well. Trying to get back onto the state highway off the flyover. So I haven't got enough time to vent my anger about that decision. And more importantly, recently, a senior transit staff has commented to me that the roundabout will be temporary anyway. So why not do it right in the first place? As summing up, as I see the article, Mr. Mayor, with your photo of it in the 27th of September, quotes $4 million for traffic lights, $1.5 million for the cycleway underpass, and $3 million for road widening. I'm not sure where the road widening is here, but if that was the widening of Duns Crossing Road, that's $8.5 million. It will certainly go a long way in creating a couple of new district roads to link up with this idea of ours with the Memorial Avenue flyover. And I urge council to stop and with the helicopter again now that this fast track housing proposals are coming into the south of Rolleston and especially impacting Duns Crossing Road. I think the whole thing has changed because of that fast track that's been lumped on council. I'm well aware of your decisions on those housing developments which have been overturned by central government. Now's the time to pause and bring central government along with the journey to reassess that whole access to Rolleston from the south. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for bringing your views to us today. Is there any questions? Deborah?
As always, thanks for a thorough submission. Just with regards to your appendix A, is it? With regards to the Memorial Ave flyover concept?
Yes.
With regards to Walker's Road, and the land on the other side
Yes,
being rezoned business, industrial, how would you gain access with regards to truck and trailer units actually gaining access to that rezone?
it's shown me, councillor Hassan, as an off-ramp. Exactly the same as it works in Memorial Avenue.
I see. So they come off the off ramp further on down.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the orange with the green arrow in it.
Right. Okay.
And you'll notice that the new link road, which Mr. Blair rightly called Blair Mills, comes underneath that flyover.
Okay. Thanks.
Superb. It's a no-brainer in my view. While I understand from transit, flyovers are expensive. No use throwing good money after bad and putting a temporary double roundabout around Duns Crossing Road and creating. I did actually have, I'm sure you've all been down there at school times, but I did have some videos and being technologically challenged, I didn't manage to get them onto the overhead for today. So,
James, thank you for coming in and presenting that to us. No, sorry, Deborah, we're out of time. Thank you, James, for presenting that to us and coming in today.
thank you.
The next presenters, Kate Hodgins, Helena Parsons and Dave Laurie, Castle Hill Community Grid and Solar Project. To today's meeting. Thank you for coming in to present to us, and just the right hand button on the microphone means we can all hear you. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou, ko Kate Hodgins aho. I'm here today with Helena Parsons and Dave Laurie. We're all here from the Castle Hill Community Energy Project. Thank you so much for having us here, first of all, today. We really appreciate the opportunity to talk about our project. So, first of all, we wanted to outline, what are we talking about when we're talking about community energy? Community energy is essentially where communities have the opportunity to generate their own power, whether that's through wind, solar, or maybe microhydro, and that brings a number of benefits for the communities, which can range from reduced costs as well as obviously building resilience. And one of the important things that's often left out is the community agency and education from being able to understand and know your electricity use and where you're spending your power. So it really is very beneficial for communities to have that greater understanding of the system when they own their own community power system. So, however, it's an extremely complex and difficult area to navigate. The system isn't really set up for small community projects, and that's why Lion Energy, along with the Community Energy Network and Araki, have set up the Community Energy Activator, of which we are one of 9 projects currently involved in this process. And we've been supported to navigate our way through the complexities of the system. And it's a two-way process. They're also learning from us as much as we're learning from them. We have our excellent mentor who's also online with us today, Bill Heaps. He's a bit of a guru in this area, and he's been really super helpful in giving us a lot of that technical understanding of the difficulties and the complexities of the system that we're looking at. So our objectives, we think, align quite closely with those of the Southern District long-term plan, and really have sort of 3 main objectives. So building resilience. I mean, obviously, you'll see from the top picture there, that's the Porter River when it was washed out a few years back. Castle Hill Village is the main emergency hub for the basin for Selwyn District Council. And we know when there's a disaster up there, it's not just the village community that is supported, it's also the people travelling through the community, it's the people recreating in the hills around there that need to be supported. So obviously resilience is a big part of our kaupapa here today. The other part of that is also looking at sustainability. As our community grows, as it has been, and more people are coming into the area, we really want to look at ways of reducing our impact. So we're not going to spoil the thing that we love in there. And then the third aspect of it is this idea of building, I guess, a community network with other stakeholders in the basin. That could be landowners or stations. And this is this idea of a virtual power plant, which essentially enables us to pool resources so that we can benefit from a more efficient system, and that's a particularly interesting thing for people like Transpower and Orion, because at times of peak load, so for example during the dry winter that we've just had, it enables them to do grid stabilisation, which eventually can also help them to avoid having to make expensive investments in capacity upgrades. So it becomes an investment, a more interesting investment opportunity for people as well. So this next slide is really just to give you a bit of an overview of where all the assets sit, so that you can see it's all pretty much in close proximity. You see your wastewater treatment plant is there, where the hall is. The thing that we wanted to sort of draw attention here is the fact that the Transpower substation, this GXP, the Grid Exit Point substation, sits very close to the village and to your assets. And that is something that we hadn't realised when we first started the project, but actually having that substation there makes the whole project very attractive and very interesting for, as I say, for people like Transpower. Partly because if you've got the generation close to the substation, it just helps. It helps them to basically manage the system and potentially, as I said, avoid those expensive capacity upgrades if they needed to take us offline, if we had a battery, for example, to store power during those peak times. So what could this look like for Castle Hill? Well, we think it could be a combination really of any of those possibilities. Exactly what the scope will be will really depend on who is involved in the project. If Selwyn District Council were prepared to be involved in our project, that will basically give us more options for what we can actually do up there. So over the next 6 months, we are looking at putting together a pre-feasibility, which will hopefully outline some of the scope and the costs that are going to be involved. Our first step, however, is the stakeholder consultation, which is really why we're here today. And starting that off, we've conducted a community survey with our community in the last couple of months and weeks. We've had information sessions. And really just what I wanted to show here from the survey was that we've had extremely positive engagement from our community. Over almost 90% of them were supportive of the idea of some kind of community energy solution in the village. And a large majority of those were also prepared to support the idea with investment, which was pleasantly surprising. So yes, we had 70 respondents, actually over 70 respondents from around 200 villagers, which is, I don't know, that's an incredible response really. So we think this, in terms of the opportunity for Selwyn District Council, as well as the resilience side of things, obviously being a major hub up there, we think this could also help you to, for example, offset some of the costs from your assets up there, the energy costs, and potentially also support some of your carbon accounting that you'll be doing down the line. The other part of that is it could become a possible blueprint for other rural communities who could learn from the experience that we're currently making. We think that we've got a lot of great learnings that will eventually be able to be passed on to other communities through this council, which we'd love you to consider. First of all, is this an initiative that you could support in principle? Would you be interested in including your assets in our proposal? And the final part is, would council be amenable or open to the idea of us either leasing or using land up there for a ground-based solar array? So that's pretty much us. If you've got any questions, we'd love to take them.
Great, thank you very much for the presentation, and an exciting proposal and opportunity for the community up there. The questions you've asked us, we won't be able to answer today, but thank you for raising them with us, and we'll have a discussion about how we get back to you in a timely way to answer that on behalf of the council. But we've got time for about one question if there's a councillor that would like to explore more. Sophie.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming today. This is quite cool. I did go to one of the information sessions for the community activation project. And yeah, it looked really cool. So I'm really glad that somebody, a group in the district, is taking it up. And it's not really a question, it's just say, I love how now we've got the community coming and consulting us on what we think about something. So yeah, I hope that we're find out more and help see how we can take this forward. We would love to.
And if you'd like us to share those survey details, we'll send them to Councillor Lydia Livingston.
Yeah, that would be good. And if there's any other information you have on that you think would be helpful for us to make that decision, please share it with us. We might have to set up another meeting after this to meet outside of the big meeting to understand it a wee bit more. And thank you for the way you've engaged with the community on it and have those views already, rather than just having an idea that you want us to land on the community. This is really community driven, which I think is an excellent way to approach the project. So thank you.
Yeah, we would be very interested in meeting with you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. The next presenter is Calvin Payne.
No, I haven't.
Calvin, welcome along, and the time's yours. You might want to just change the microphones, just press the button, the right hand button, and if you don't mind turning the other one beside you off, otherwise it'll just feed through. Thank you.
Otherwise you'll get two of me. Yeah, awesome. Okay. My river is the River Lark in East Anglia. My mountain is the Isle of Ely, which is one of the highest points in East Anglia. On top of the Isle of Ely sits Ely Cathedral. The cathedral was founded in 672 AD, and parts of the current building date back nearly 1,000 years. My ancestors include at least 4 generations of farmers. My ancestors also include Thomas Payne, who was born in Thetford, Norfolk, in East Anglia. Thomas Payne wrote a best-selling publication called Common Sense, which was a key part of the independence of America on the 4th of July, 1776, from Great Britain. My waka for the past 2 years has been the Malvern Community Board. What an interesting journey this has been. My name is Calvin Payne. The rural county of Norfolk in the UK is 5,371 square kilometres. It currently has a population of over 900,000 people. Perhaps this is where Selwyn and Malvern are heading. I must thank the councillors for listening to the community and applying common sense during the decision on the representation review. It is disappointing that council did not seem to listen to the community, and the initial proposal was not updated following the results of the 2 rounds of public consultation. I am optimistic for the future representation reviews that will be in that we will learn from the recent process and make improvements. I intend to be involved in all future reviews, at least as a member of the community, as I plan to retire in Selwyn District. The representation review updated proposal currently takes us back to a similar situation that we were in 6 years ago, with 11 councillors and 1 community board in Malvern. I am optimistic that the proposal will maintain local representation and be robust for our future expansion. In the question concerning community boards on the consultation, it was disappointing that it was specific and a closed question saying yes, no to Malvern Community Board. In my opinion, a more appropriate question may have been, in which wards do you think a community board would provide effective representation to local communities? Now let me talk about Malvern Community Board. I'm really pleased to see Castle Hill here today, and I'm very excited about what they're proposing, and I hope council can work with them. They are one of our 14 local communities in Malvern. I personally am working at Lincoln University at the moment, and I'm personally involved in the energy farm there. So I will be contacting them and making sure that we can all work together with all our experiences in energy to actually make something like that work. At Malvern Community Boards, we advocate for our communities. And I'm just going to give you a few examples now of what we've achieved with basically no funding and very limited delegations in our first 2 years. This is just a selection, there's many more. Number 1 on my list is we've ensured council have efficiently applied a 10-year paint job to the Springfield Donut. Number 2, we've supported Santry and Garfield for 2 years. And thank you very much to Bob and Pam for that as well. We've got 1 more Christmas to go in our term, so if anybody would like to volunteer as Santa Claus, that would be most helpful. We've supported our community for a reasonable outcome for the Sheffield Pool. They've done a lot of work too, but there's lots more work to be done on Sheffield Pool, and we will support them. Number 4, after the disestablishment of the committees of council, we have supported our 14 communities to form viable community groups, supporting them with constitutions and guidance about how to meet the new incorporated society regulations, as well as so that they're recognised by council and can meet with council. Our community board members always attend those group meetings. I've attended every one of the Kirwin Community Association meetings since my term began. And then we only attend when we're invited. I've been invited to everyone. They copy me on all emails. It's a great conduit for the community. I also like to say a thank you to our 2 councillors in Malvern who've been attending regularly all our community groups, which is really awesome. I've got a number 5, which I'm a bit unsure whether to mention it, but that's the reason for this padlock. That's SDC property, as you'll see written on it, so I've got to explain why it's there. I broke into Garfield Jail on Monday evening. That was the padlock that was on. The reason I broke in is because Garfield Jail has been locked since after Santa Claus last year. It's a community facility that should be accessed. And I broke into it because council couldn't access the key to the facility. So I broke into it. We've now got a key and we've now got a padlock. And I wasn't meaning to say I broke into. I was meaning to say a community board member broke into. But I've been open and honest with what I've done. And you can have your property back if you like. And we've made the community now got access. So Santa Claus will be in the jail in Garfield this December. Thank you. That was number 5. So I have recently attended community group meetings in other wards. The main difference I found is that councillors do not attend group meetings, and groups are not even aware of the current yearly $250 grant to all groups, which this year has just been increased to $1,000 per year. That's a discretionary fund that they can use for administration, etc., as well as other projects within their group area. The groups are also entitled to 6 free room hires per year in council facilities. One group in particular has been...
Kelvin, I'll just in the last minute of your time this morning.
I've got 8 minutes 42, but yeah, okay, I'm nearly there. The group's also entitled to 6 free room hires in council facilities. One group in particular has been searching for free room hires so they can have meetings. What a great reason to have community boards across the district so that we're all in communication. Finally, I will leave you with 2 quotes from the Local Government New Zealand conference this year. From the President of Local Government New Zealand, this is the conference of localism. The Community Board Committee also said, community boards are the unity in community. Thank you, decision makers.
Okay, Kelvin, thank you for coming in. Any questions of Kelvin? Time for one. All right, Kelvin, thank you.
I have a question.
Elizabeth, yeah.
You mentioned that you've attended some other community groups outside of in other wards where the councils haven't been attending and the communities were unaware of the benefits they could receive through council. Just wondering if you were happy to let us know, if you don't want to let us know what community groups, just which wards they were, thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'm quite happy to, in particular with Springs Ward.
Cool. Thanks, Kelvin. Cheers for coming in today.
Thank you.
The next presenter is Rob Hunt. Rob, welcome back. You sit down too, Rob. Yeah.
Thank you for having me back. Hopefully not too many visits, so I'll be on the Christmas invite list. Look, the reason for attendance is to just talk to the recent feedback from our community. I want to acknowledge the situation which the council finds itself in as a result of NZTA reduction in funding, long-term planning funding available, which has obviously impacted some of the proposed funding plans, infrastructure plans, which was part of the long-term plan, lots of plans. But, you know, the part here is we can see as a school, as a Kura, that there is not just the council that needs to solve this issue, but the issue of traffic lights and safety of our Tamariki crossing the road is as big an issue as it gets for us. And I want to thank council for the work that's been done since the announcement of the long-term plan funding gap with the workshops to really put that on track again. But it's important, as we have different voices in our community, to really echo that, you know, we have over 1,000 people sign a petition, you know, supporting this. We have had multiple letters from our community. We approached NZTA directly to seek them to revisit that, of which they've directed us back to council. Whilst acknowledging that the volume of traffic will increase significantly, the logic of which doesn't necessarily go hand in hand, but nevertheless, we find ourselves here with a shared problem. And as I can see, talking on behalf of our community, the indicators look positive by the workshop that was completed in September. But until that's signed and on the dotted line, you know, we continue to advocate to you all, recognising that, you know, the safety of our children every day is a concern for all of us. I don't really think there's much more I need to say, but if you've got any questions of me, I'm most happy to answer them.
Great, thanks, Rob. Question I've got is, if Duns Crossing Road was no longer to be the main exit off the state highway and some new road made its way behind the school, do you think lights on the corner of Duns Crossing Road and Burnham School Road would be required to get kids safely to and from school, or would the realignment of that road negate the need for lights at that intersection?
Yes, so really good point. And, you know, I value the fact that we actually have different suggestions being put forward. The reality is, let's take the opportunity for the fast track development to progress, and we end up with several more thousand houses there. Obviously, the impact of that is there's more traffic still passing a need in either scenario. I'd further add that having spoken to Carter Group as part of our school community, their intention, if they progressed, would be a road, but equally they still see traffic lights as a need for that. So this is a step that would be needed in any case, and it's needed now.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Have you had any current from the coalition MPs come and visit the school and have a look through, or have invited any?
Yeah, we've invited both the local transport minister and local council minister, Simeon Brown. We have invited the education minister and our local MP, Nicola Gregg, as well. There has been correspondence sent to all of them around this as well. Similar letter to what was sent to our representatives here. We haven't had a response back from them.
And probably just some further info on that. I've met with the principals of all of the primary and secondary schools here in Lincoln, and we're working with Nicola's office, Nicola Gregg's office, to have Simeon and Minister Simeon Brown and Minister Erica Stanford here before the end of the year. Simeon's due sooner, and we're trying to confirm a date for Erica, but we'll be back in touch with the schools once those dates have been confirmed. And this is one of those projects that will obviously be will be discussed. Grant.
Good morning. In your interactions with the Ministry of Education, could you let us know what was their plan to get children safely to and from school and the design and consenting of the school?
Yeah, look, I guess as anybody who takes over a role, the past decisions that have been made will always have an impact on the future. I'm not sure in 2016 or 2014, when the school was built, was the growth of Rolleston expected to be at the level it is now. And I think we all continue to adapt to a changing environment. And whilst, you know, I'm sure we could all see with hindsight different things that could be done, the decision that was made then is one we live with and we need to address. probably what I'm asking is that would be really good information for us to know what the MOE's position on this is, because they can't abrogate themselves from the fact they designed and consented that building on a, and have a responsibility to get children safely to school. So if that information could be provided, that'd be helpful as well. Yes, so as I outlined, we have gone to the Ministry of Education, but we, as an independent entity, can't control those. We are a public entity in ourselves, a school. It's my role as the presiding member to talk to the current situation, and the council would have worked with Ministry of Education at the time of that consent being given.
Thank you, Rob, for coming in and presenting that to us again. I appreciate your time. Councillors, we'll circle back later in the meeting at the end to think about those 4 presentations and what the next steps are for any of them. So we'll just move on now to the confirmation of minutes. It's on tab 5. We've got 4 meetings that we've had since the last council meeting for minutes to approve. Those are the Wednesday, the 11th of September council meeting, the Kirikiri Tour Future Cell and deliberations on the 13th of September, the representation review subcommittee on the 9th of July, and the representation review deliberations on the 10th of October. There's a mover and seconder for all those minutes. Thank you, Phil and Sophie.
I've got a correction.
All right. What is, and which set of minutes would you like to?
The first set from the council meeting on the 11th of September, page 16. In point 4, it lists Councillor Dean as being the Rolleston representative for the Community Funding Assessment Panel. It's actually me. And I did go back to the live stream to check that I wasn't imagining things.
Thanks, Sophie. We'll update that. Any other changes, Deborah?
I've got 2 corrections of the minutes that I've passed on. And they are in regards to the representation review deliberations, page 37 of diligent. I think it's just a typo. Ellesmere Ward, and I questioned that the community of interest would rather be the Springs Ward for Taitapu than the Ellesmere Ward. So it was just the changing of that to that.
Right, okay.
And there was a discussion around the name, on page 40, there was a discussion around the name of Tawera with one of the subdivisions it mentions West Melton, it should actually be Melvin, was also named Tawera. So I've passed that correction through as well.
Thanks, Deborah. Oh,
yeah, on the 11th, my name wasn't in the present list, but I've moved some things further down. So yeah, it's tidy. Thank you.
we'll let that. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carries. And the matters arising from those minutes will be picked up through future council reports or today. The next item is on tab 6. It's my report. There's a number of things I have highlighted there around the roading discussions that Rob and Jens have talked about this morning. The local Water Done Well work that we have completed as a council and have ongoing work to determine the best course of action for us after doing some work with other councils in the South Island. The representation review hearings. I note in here the meeting that I've had with school principals twice now in Rolleston, for Rolleston and the contributing schools to Rolleston College, and met earlier in the year with Lincoln at Lincoln High with the contributing schools within Lincoln to that. Both of those meetings really focused on the need to have space for next year and the year after, an appropriate space within their schools, and a desire to have the minister come and see kind of the pressure that both places are under. Both towns have similar issues, but are facing them slightly differently with different rebuild aspects, and Lincoln quite different than what's happening or has happened with the new stuff that needs to be built here in Rolleston. We are working with the Minister's office and hope to have a meeting here before the end of the year, and Nicola Greg has been supportive of getting that across the line. And finish the comments there around Culture Fest, which was a great occasion for those that were able to attend, as it is every year a real celebration of Selwyn's growing diversity And it was excellent to be down and see the Tuna eel sculpture opening in Leeston. It's on the main road. If you've driven in or out of Leeston, past the cenotaph, it's just there. And is a brilliant addition to public artwork that the Lions and many others, but led by the Lions, have been a part of. I haven't answered any other questions that you might have on my report. Grant.
You just skipped over conflicts of interest, and one outstanding conflicts I note today, both Trans Waste and Central Plains Water are coming, so I just declare them as meetings today.
Thanks, Grant. Were there any other conflicts of interest at the beginning of the meeting that people wanted to raise? Sophie's this conflict?
Yes, I'm not sure whether it's a conflict. We've got a decision coming up later on in the piece, tab 16, around the new school in Rolleston, and my husband's on the establishment board.
Okay.
It's not really a financial conflict. It was just kind of, I should probably raise it.
Thank you. Megan.
Yes, I just had a question on the local water done well. When we had our last workshops, it was indicated from a timeframe perspective that we'd have a paper back at this meeting.
Yes.
And I just wanted to know, is that anticipated at the next council meeting?
Sharon.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, there's a lot of complexities around the paper, so it will be slated for the November meeting.
I'll move you receive my paper. Seconder. Thanks, Bob. All those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. We have the Chief Executive's report, tab 7 on page 45. Sharon.
Thanks, Sam. Couple of items. The Resource Management Act reforms. Just really outlining the three-phased approach at a high level to the Resource Management Act reform. Bob and his team have pulled together a more substantial briefing, which we will circulate to councillors for your information, which will provide an opportunity to ask in more detail. But if there's any questions that you've got with regards to the high level there, I know that Bob will be able to respond to those. The Canterbury Regional Public Transport Plan. So again, we're seeking a retrospective endorsement from you. We did circulate the draft, but I'm very conscious this was over school holiday period, and a number of councillors were away on holiday. So we've Andrew is here in attendance. You can see that the draft that we have submitted is attached in case you had any questions. And really the policy manual update, that's just a follow on from the last meeting where the delegations were endorsed and supported. And that's really just a noting for council, as we said we would, that these are the changes to the policy manual update. And other than that, I just want to acknowledge that we launched our economic development strategy last night. We're hosted by Lincoln University. It was great. We had over 90 people attend, and it's really exciting. It's very much the start of our journey now, and we're looking forward to the future. Mayor Sam and I attended the Malvern Community Board Community Services Awards, along with Lydia and Bob, and that was a very pleasant evening. And Grant and myself and Malcolm attended the launch of the Te Pai Pai Ageing Well strategy. And again, that was tied into a swell event. And it was really great to have support there from multi-agencies. And again, it reflects council's role as a facilitator and looking at the levers that we can pull to help support others to be able to deliver to our wider community.
Thanks, Sharon. Deborah. Oh, sorry, Sophie.
Yeah, I'm happy to move it. I just had one very minor correction regarding the public transport plan. We didn't actually see the draft until the agenda came out, but the consultation document was circulated. So, and there was feedback requested based on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie. Is there a seconder for the report? And then we'll come to you, Deborah. Thank you, Malcolm. Deborah, a question?
Sorry.
We'll come back to you, Deborah.
Sorry, we continue.
Okay. My question is around the policy manual update. And I've just got a question for projects that are below the CEO's financial delegation, which I consider to be of significant interest to council or the community, and it says may be reported at the discretion of the department manager. I'm just wondering whether those projects will be actually captured by the dashboard presentations to the finance and performance committees.
Yes, absolutely. So you can see at the finance and performance, we're using a dashboard and the projects will be reported through there. So it will be fulsome reports and it will be there available and visible for councillors and discussed at each finance and performance meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Grant.
Also on the same line, really, usually policy tries to provide clear direction to staff, but you can imagine a staff member sitting there and it's quite clear in the wording, it says of significant interest to council or the community. And then the staff member's going, shall I or shan't I bring this forward? And it doesn't provide clear direction. And and with all the best will in the world, when things become a bit hot, temptations to be used to put it in the file. I think the key words in there are significant interest to the council and community should be referred to us. I find it unusual that you provide that level of discretion. I'm all for enhancing the system, but it does seem, in my view, a bit slightly too loose.
Thank you. We will note that again. We've got good solid reporting that will come through to finance and performance around our projects. If you think about it, the projects that have been approved via the LTP, they will be brought through, and I think we're pretty good at bringing any variances that may be required from that through to finance and performance. So the executive team, that is their role, also to provide guidance to staff if there is any concerns, but or if they have any uncertainty, but I'm fairly confident that the executive group will be able to do that.
I guess what I was suggesting is if there was any doubt as to whether it should be referred, they should err on the side of caution and refer it.
Absolutely, Graham, and we'd like to be transparent. And I think, there's not much that we don't bring through to councillors for attention.
Thank you. Thanks for those questions and responses. Nothing further on this paper. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. The next item is the representation review. It's on tab 8 of today's agenda, or page 50. Adoption of the final proposal for notification. Move and seconded. Deborah, move. Seconded. Elizabeth. Tim.
So this report seeks the adoption of a final proposal for public notification of a representation review. The recommendations set out the position that was reached through the deliberations on the 10th of October, and they're set out there in some detail. 11 members, 4 wards that we know now, some dual naming, the retention of the Melbourne Community Board. I do note, Sam, I think for completeness, under E, we should have a 3, and that we should name the number of appointees to the Melbourne Community Board. My reading of the Act suggests that's probably what we should have. So if we can add an extra resolution to that under E, number 3, that 2 council elected members be appointed to the Melbourne Community Board.
Yeah, and that's what we decided at
the last
the
meeting.
deliberations. So thanks, Tim, for that clarity.
I just forgot my mouse. So maybe I'll just step you through. We'll go through this in some detail during the 10th. There was a couple of members that weren't there, so I'll just step through the process. As a way of background, councils are required to undertake a review every 6 years. We did ours in 3 years, namely because of the uneven growth across the district. I set there under 3 the key things that the council needs to consider during a review. And I guess one of the key things is the plus or minus 10% rule, and that's what brought on this earlier review than the 6-year mandatory period. That there's been a lot of growth across the district, but importantly, that growth has been quite uneven. And you'll see there in table number 1 that we weren't compliant with the 10 plus or minus rule. And the 10 plus or minus rule basically means that each elected member is representing about the same amount of people with a tolerance of plus or minus 10%. So that's what that's about. So as a way of background, we set up a representation review subcommittee back in April of 2023. The subcommittee has taken on a lot of work to identify options for representation scenarios that best meet the review criteria. And you can see some of those work streams there. We did lots of workshops, qualitative and quantitative research. We also discussed with other councils their approach to representation arrangements. So we looked at a number of options. I think there's about 20 in total, ranging from no wards, it's an election at large, through 2, 3, 4 wards, and with a number of councillors ranging from 8 to 11. In September of last year, we undertook our first, tranche of engagement. That was in September 23. A 2-stage process, qualitative in-depth in-person interviews of about 157 people, followed by some online surveys of residents. Some key takeaways from that early engagement. I think the last 2 are quite telling. Over 70% of residents indicated they were not content with either the ward structure or the number of councillors, and there was a notable appetite for revising the representation framework just to represent the changing needs of the community. We undertook some preliminary consultation in April of this year, and we put forward to confirm 2 main options for the basis for the preliminary consultation. So option 1, 4 wards, 8 councillors, no community board. Option 2, 3 wards, 10 councillors and no community board. And we went through this preliminary consultation between April and May of this year. 229 submissions. We also received 219 responses collected by the Darfield Residents Association and the Melbourne Community Board. And of that consultation, there was about 46% of people preferred option 1, 29% supported option 2. There was a stronger support for the community boards with 60% indicating they favoured the retention of that board. After reviewing the findings in connection with the initial research and taking account of the principles of fair and effective representation, the subcommittee recommended option 1 to the council and also wished to explore the option of including dual names with the local rūnaka. In July 24, the council adopted the recommendation of the subcommittee as the initial proposal for public consultation. And I set out there under 4.3 the key changes, the reduction of the number of councillors from 10 to 8, maintaining the 4 wards with some boundary changes and renaming the wards with dual naming. And I guess a couple of key things were moving Burma into the Ralston ward and West Melton into Springs. It was also proposed that the Melbourne Community Board be disestablished. Public consultation ran from August of this year through to the beginning of September. We received 616 submissions and there was a hearing back on the 26th of September with 35 people presented on their submission in person. Fair to say that the feedback from the submissions did not support many aspects of the initial proposal. The 2 key themes came out is that the geographic size of Melbourne in particular would make it difficult to have effective representation across that part of the district. And secondly, the reduction of 1 council in that ward and the removal of community board, there's concerns about how the rural voice would be heard. So the 2 key things that came out from the submissions. So we went through a deliberation process on the 10th of October, and council noted the high level of community feedback received regarding the change of ward boundaries and the disestablishment of the Melbourne Community Board. While the council noted the principle of community's interest, it was also noted that there's just one of several factors to be considered in developing representation arrangements. So the council in its deliberations decided against the initial proposal, and they wished to retain the status quo in terms of the ward boundaries, but add an extra councillor into Rolleston, which would effectively bring us into alignment with the plus or minus 10% rule. There's also a decision to include the dual naming of the wards. So just moving to 6, the options. So the first option is to go with what the deliberations came with. I should say the council staff did have some concerns about the communities of interest that this arrangement represents, in particular for West Melton, that is under this proposal would be retained within Melbourne, which would be retained into Ellesmere, and in particular, I guess, West Melton, which would be separated from Rolleston. Nevertheless, as I said, the council noted that the communities of interest is just one factor to be considered. Option 2 would be to go with a different representation proposal, and this is open for council to do that. I do note that having a change at this stage of the process may have some reputational consequences. In terms of next steps, the next step is giving public notice of the final proposal, and we need to do that before the 4th of November. And then we move into an appeal process. If we do move away from the initial proposal, appeals are available for anyone in the district to lodge an appeal. Appeals are dealt with by the local government commission. It must be dealt with by, I think, April of next year. I think that's all I wanted to talk about. So over to you guys.
Thank you, Tim. Just a reminder that today is really a process decision based on the deliberations that we have already had. It's very much the same as when we go through an annual plan or long-term plan process. We have hearings, we have deliberations where all the substantive matters are dealt with, and then it needs to be brought back to a council meeting to be signed off. So recognising that this was a split and contentious decision a couple of weeks ago, that was the meeting to have those views shared, and some of them you might want to say again today, but just remind everyone this is, I don't see this as a change in our way from where the deliberations landed, but reasons Tim identified around reputation and thinking about our own governance. We should be thinking about the process we set up at the beginning, which is today to ratify formally a decision made through the deliberations. Deborah.
Thanks, Sam, for your last comments. I think it's very important that with the decision-making role that the deliberations and the decision-making role sits at the council level. And when we're looking at communities of interest, it did actually cause some debate, and there were submissions, especially around Greendale. Another area on one of the maps was Taitapu. You could also say for other areas that while we talk about Rolleston West, what about Springston South? I mean, there are other communities of interest that this actually cuts through the heart of our communities of interest with regards to, and if we're going to have a representation where all councillors elected are involved in ensuring that the best decisions are made for the total residents of Selwyn, I think this is a really good solution. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. Malcolm.
Right, councillors, the legislative requirements that we have are listed there under background: communities of interest, effective representation of communities of interest, number of elected members, and fair representation of electors. This fails. This proposal fails. It does not reflect the communities of interest of Burnham, West Melton,
or Rolleston West. Are you going to rename Rolleston West Primary School to be Leeston North? We have a fast track proposal sitting here. We have many more houses, and that's in Ellesmere. I think I will not support this. I'll be voting against it. We have Sam's comments with reputation and on our own governance. Well, I think we'll be called to account. I think the Local Government Commission will look at this and go, doesn't fit communities of interest. So vote at your peril. Cheers.
Welcome. Sophie.
Yeah, kia ora. Thank you very much. And apologies because obviously I wasn't at the deliberations. I am actually fine with voting for this. You guys went through the process. This is how it landed. I just wanted to ask or just clarify. It does say on there, Rolleston excluding West Rolleston. At this stage, just to point out, there's probably about 20 people who live in that mesh block. There is a school that is on that side of the road, and there are very few people. And yes, we're looking down the barrel of a fast track approval subdivisions down there. Those houses aren't built yet, and we don't even know whether they will be within the next 3 years. So on that grounds, like I get that there's a reason why it says excluding West Rolleston, but just to say this is not an entire suburb. This is not a massive number of people at this stage. It potentially will trigger doing another review in future, but we seem to constantly be in that state anyway due to rapid growth in all areas of the district. So that's my piece. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sophie. Lydia.
I guess I just wanted to provide some feedback from our community after our deliberations last week. And actually, I think the feedback that I've had from West Mountain is they're actually quite impressed with the decision that we came to. And, you know, I looked back through and to make sure and of the consultation that we had from our community of those 1,500 thoughts that were put in to our representation review consultation, the data from West Mountain said that they did not support the proposal that we'd put out. So I think that we made a good decision for that community because they said that, and I couldn't find the data to say that they felt otherwise. So I think we're making decisions based on what our community has told us. And if we can't find the data to back up the other things, then it doesn't make sense to roll with those. Our community spoke, we deliberated, we listened, we decided, and sometimes it is hard sitting around this table when we don't agree. But as you say, Sam, we toe the line and we move on and go with the decision that council has made. You know, we're not always at consensus, but we respect the decisions that are made for our community. And I think that we've made a good decision for our community.
Thanks, Lydia. Philip.
Thanks, Sam. We just wanted to reflect on our decision that we made on the 10th of October. We went out to our community. It was sort of a process that we went through, being at the centre of it with Tim. We went to our community stating that the status quo was not something that we could support. We set up our committees so that representation right at the committee level was covering right across the district. We had youth, we had the Melbourne Community Board, everyone was at the table. So to ensure that our decision-making process throughout the whole thing was right. We went out to the community in 3 tranches for our community engagement. I believe that the decision we made on the 10th of October was based on patch protection. I think that the feedback and when we considered the feedback from a small part of our community, we over-considered it because they were the squeaky wheel, while ignoring the wider feedback from a similar number of people across the whole community. In terms of our communities of interest, we have split our communities up.
while West Rolleston may not have many people living there, the answer is in the name. It's West Rolleston. It's not anywhere else. It's maybe small now, but it is going to be bigger. And West Mountain, in the same vein, we got the feedback when we went and engaged with our community around that communities of interest. I believe that we have set the task for the next council elected in 2025 in the same way that our previous councils made us do a representation review, that the next council will be forced into doing a representation review, because we couldn't make sound decisions, and these representation reviews are expensive. So in terms of expenditure, there's all these things that come into play too. However, on the 10th of October, we did deliberate these things. I'm not going to derail a process that the Stirling District Council has a process because of the poor decision that we have made. However, now that we've made that poor decision, we need to live with it, and we need to hold ourselves responsible for the contents of that decision. Thank you. Thanks, Phil. Shane.
Just quickly from me, kora katoa Sam, kei te mihi, waipiri hinki, mana rana tira tana, te nākoe, te tiro kui te ara atia, the unobstructed pathway to knowledge. And I'm not going to help out about what happened at the last meeting. I'm going to think about Waikiriki Kitua. And whilst the decision is made for the current, our positions are here for the future. Although there was a difference, I'm happy with the decision that council has made. As a council, I think everybody's kind of happy. But who knows who will be happy into the future. So it's an interesting position that we find ourselves in, and thank you to Tim and his staff, all of you, for the mighty amount of work that's been accomplished and then reignited. So appreciate all the work that's gone into it. Appreciate the councillors' points of view, and this is democracy. So we'll live with it for now, and we'll let the governors of the future decide on the rest. So kia ora.
Good, Shane. Tim, thank you for all the work that you and the team put in. Phil, for chairing the subcommittee on the way through. Youth Council for being involved in the community board for their activity as well. It's a long process, and look forward to this now being publicly notified. All those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carries. Thank you. The next item is tab 9. It's on page 50 of today's report. It's the Cord Limited annual reports. It's the first of 3 annual reports that we are presenting today. Cord presented to councillors within the last month, so we didn't feel like we needed another full overview today. And so the report is as it sits in front of you. Sharon.
Yeah, thank you. It's just really around a process called regularly come and connect in with council. So this is required to endorse, so we can publish this onto our website.
That we received the Cord annual report. Lyle, thank you. Seconded Lydia. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. The next item is the Transwaste Canterbury annual report, and noting Councillor Miller's conflicts raised earlier. The council receives Transwaste annual report 2024. Mover and seconder for that. Shane and Bob, thank you. Sharon, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, Transwaste send their apologies, so we didn't invite them to come today. They may well come to the next meeting, and just as part of the public forum, just as an opportunity to connect with council and give an update, perhaps over a 15-minute period. So we expect to see them in November.
Thank you. I'm happy to take questions on that as well, if there's those questions. Okay.
Does anyone have any questions today? No. Thanks, Grant. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried.
Susan Goodfellow.
And the next item is Central Plains Water Limited Annual Report. Susan Goodfellow's here. Can I come down to the end of the room, Susan? Yeah, yes, there. Just the right hand button, Susan.
Thank you, thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly today. So I hope that you've all received a copy of our report in the post, and it's also available online. Look, I won't go through the detail of the report, but what I wanted to highlight, and just, I know I've spoken to you before about a 100-year plan, and just for councillors to be mindful of 400 kilometres of underground network of pipes sitting out there and 100,000 hectares of land. And over the past 2 years, our board and management have been developing the 100-year plan. You might say, why are we doing that? The sensible reason is that we're going to be around for more than 100 years, given the life of the asset. And it's enabled us to stretch our thinking to the possibility of what could be around that water supply infrastructure. We currently supply water for irrigation, of course, but also have some resilience planning in place that's been installed through connections to the Springfield Drinking Treatment Station for the council. We supply 20 connections for firefighting. We supply stock water. And you've been talking today about future expansion in the communities in the district. And one of the things that we have been talking with executives at the council and management relates to the idea that you can leverage that infrastructure to do other things, including perhaps drinking water treatment stations throughout the district to complement your expansion, and just to think about that opportunity infrastructure could provide for the future. So it's stretching our thinking beyond what we currently do, but it's about climate resilience. It's about how do we take a scheme that was actually the Central Plains Water Enhancement Scheme. It wasn't just about irrigation. Now that we've had nearly 10 years of operating with steady state, we're sitting back and we're saying, how can we actually add more value to the community? So that's the space we're in, and we'd just like to reinforce that. And in addition, obviously, to the possibilities for the future, we just want to celebrate and acknowledge the contributions we've made to things like switching off 70 million cubic metres of groundwater. So that's 25,000 Olympic swimming pools that is retained in the aquifers annually. And so that's starting to have a really significant impact, beneficial to lowland stream flows. We cover 45,000 hectares of irrigation, but we actually manage 71,000 hectares through our farm plan process. So that's an additional 26,000 hectares that we actually don't have to manage, but we do. And as a result of that, we're bringing all the farmers along on the journey of improved farm practices. And as a result, since pre-CPW, we've reduced nitrate leaching by 29%. So, it's a long journey, but all of these tools in the toolbox for ourselves and the community, we're looking forward to those changes over time. So, any questions? Or Grant might want to add something? No?
No, thank you. Great, thank you for that, Susan. Any questions? No? Oh, yes, Malcolm.
You're talking about wanting to build and do greater things in the future. Have you got anything in mind?
Well, as I mentioned, the one opportunity that seems to be pretty obvious is looking at drinking water resilience and looking at how maybe the installation of some nodes with drinking water treatment stations could transform the raw river water into potable water for communities. So that's one opportunity. We're also considering solar and maybe potentially hydro as well. As I said, there's some existing supplies around firefighting and stock water and what have you. So you could be quite creative and think about aquaculture. Obviously, these are value propositions that need to be, investigated, but we really want to encourage people to think about the possibilities, because this infrastructure is here. It's going to be here for a long time. Our landscapes, our lives and livelihoods will change with climate resilience, and we just want to be able to leverage that infrastructure going forward.
Fantastic.
Councillors, the AGM for CPW is Tuesday week. I intend to be there, but would just like to seek the endorsement of the council to vote in favour of the 3 recommendations that sit there, and also, should by some chance I can't be there, the ability to add the proxy to be able to indicate our voting preference, which is in favour of the Chief Financial Officer's report. reception, the appointment of the auditor as KPMG, and the confirmation of the appointment of Dry Director John Palmer. Has anyone got any different views than that?
I've just got one more question. What's our shareholding in Central Plains Water Limited?
We'll find it out for you, Deborah, and they can be emailed to you. Elizabeth.
Oh, just checking, is this AGM invitation here? Is this for all of us councillors or are you just for you to attend, Sam?
Anyone, any councillor that would like to attend the AGM?
Welcome. Actually start at 6. We're having some food, so the AGM's at 7.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Sam. I just want to make a correction to the covering sheet into section 3, the background. There is a statement there about Councillor Grant Miller and Mr Bruce Scammell each having shareholdings. That is an incorrect statement. And we've got alternative wording, which is Mr Bruce Scammell is an independent director, audit and risk committee chairman, and Councillor Grant Miller is an independent director and chairman. So we'll change that wording around.
Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Did we have a move and second actually at the very beginning of that? I don't know if we did. Phil and Malcolm, great. All those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Thank you. Strategic Priority Committee confirmation of chairs and memberships. Thank you, Malcolm. Thanks, Shane. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who put their names up for particular committees and to lead some of those committees for the process that we went through, having interviews. And it was great to have some external support. And Stephen, thank you for your contribution to that as well. Looking forward to getting these committees up and running. There's some pretty urgent work that we want to see done. And when last night the economic development launch was a really positive event, and now there's a lot of organisations and people wanting to think about what's next. So for that committee, we know there's a lot happening for the water, local water done well. Obviously, there's a huge amount happening. The development of Helpit is only one part of housing and urban development, but that is also a project that's been waiting for these committees to be set up, and the climate change and sustainability has been an ongoing piece of work that we need to continue to ramp in our organisation and think about community leadership. So yeah, thank you to everyone. Lydia.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I guess I have some questions around the local water done well and strategic priority committee. It's a pretty big piece of work and it's very important to our community. And I guess I'm interested to know around the selection of people around the table in this subcommittee, because there's some skills and knowledge around this table that I think has been excluded from that. And I mean, if it's not up for debate, it's not up for debate. You say, but I just think this is a really big piece of work and there should be more people involved in this.
So at the very beginning of this process, we said there's these 4 pieces of work, which are all going to be really important. They're strategic priorities for us. Some of them will require pretty constant meetings and conversations, and particularly that one, Lydia, will require, I mean, it could be weekly or fortnightly meetings over particular periods of time if we're going to need to respond to work. And we said as a group, we wanted to be able to trust one another, that we could appoint individuals to those committees, and that they might need to consult with other members of the council to bring particular views to the meeting, but that we could trust that one another would be able to do that rather than needing everybody to be a part of those committees. Otherwise, we just end up back at council doing everything. So the end stage of that is some people aren't on every committee, and that is the way the process lands.
They're not up for debate?
No.
Okay. And I guess my other concern really is, and this is, we talked about this at the last paper that came to council on this, and my concern is around the funding implications, because I still don't think that we've really got that out properly. And there were some questions that were unanswered for me around the costing, and it just says it comes from our democracy budget, but I don't see in our democracy budget where there is room for this. And when we're looking at industry experts, you know, none of that is going to be for free. So I do think that there will be some other funding implications that I haven't had answers to yet. So I don't know whether you've got any more commentary, Sharon.
Sure.
Yeah, but there's a small budget aside around consultancy that sits in the CEO cost centre that could be utilised. But we have a number of people who are actually interested in participating in a voluntary basis because they have a vested interest in wanting to see the strategic progress. Okay, thank you.
And I guess that's also part of thinking about the MOUs and partnerships that we have. Places like Lincoln University or Kiwi Rail today, or Burnham Military Camp have been involved in similar arrangements. They may want to actually just empower their currently paid employees to be a part of this work, which wouldn't require cost to council. But you're right, Lydia, in some cases there will be a cost to us, and that's the budget that the CEO has identified. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. We now move to the adoption of Waikirikiri Ki Tua Future Selwyn. And there's 4 appendixes here. Move Malcolm. Seconded Sophie. Welcome team. We'll either give us a short version. The compressed comprehensive version. Is it
George, nice speaking to you. Good morning all. I have the pleasure of introducing this item. It's a fairly monumentous and exciting day for the Southern District Council. Future Selwyn Waikirikiri Ki Tua provides that strategic end goal, those aspirations, those outcomes, which we don't have at the moment as a council. It provides us that 50 years and beyond goal to allow all those decisions that we do make as a council to align to the single purpose. So it's a fairly exciting thing and monumentous, but I'll pass it over to the team for the details.
I just want to add my thanks to the council and the executive team for supporting us and getting on board with it, and heaps of the staff that put their time and effort into it, especially George here working hard on it, and also marketing and the comms and the GIS and digital team. So it's been awesome to be able to have an idea and have people that can bring it to life. So it's been an awesome journey for us, yeah. But George will have to just run through what's in front of us and how we've got here, and yeah.
Yeah, so a fairly big report for 4 appendices. So I'll just quickly outline what's in there in the process, and then happy to take any questions. So the report's got Appendix 1, which are all the recommendations that are unchanged from the hearing process. Appendix 2 outlines those recommendations where there was general agreement, but some points for staff to go away and work on some changes and come back to you. We promise we would do that, and those are set out distinctly in Appendix 2. Appendix 3 kind of is the heart of Waikirikiri Ki Tua Future Selwyn, which is a strategic framework. So that's also incorporating the changes outlined in Appendix 1 and 2 in Appendix 3, so you can see them in situ in the strategic framework. And to make sure that we keep moving forward, Appendix 4 outlines the approach we have for early engagement, which we brought at a council briefing on the 25th of September. So it's a fairly succinct outline of what we're proposing to do as the next stage, but we brought all those ideas and those concepts to you at the briefing. The final version of Waikirikiri Ki Tua Future Selwyn is still in a development environment pending the decision today. So the link in the report will take you to the draft version, but last week, I had an email from Ben, Head of Strategy, with the link to get the version 2, so you can see all the changes that are in the report before you today in situ in that web environment, and we will look to make that as the live pending the decision today. So this started in 2020, a time of great change, great uncertainty, and also a lot of growth for us, which we originally didn't foresee, or economists told us that may not happen over that time. And we look to just review Selwyn 2031 and how we can uplift that strategically to coordinate and align our strategies and plans and policies and make sure we're moving forward together in one direction. And the evidence-based transforming over that time, as well as incorporating engagement from the previous long-term plan, the district plan review, and who we might for the Greater Christchurch Spatial Plan, which is our spatial plan and future development strategy. There's some internal workshop with one of you and the executive leadership team and staff about the strategic choice cascade, just about the aspiration, and then looking at our strategic role, what skin do we have in the game of where we want to take White Kitty Kitty Selwyn. The draft came to you all on the 12th of June to be endorsed for public consultation. Rather than us tinkering away in the background, it was really important that we got a good feel from the community as what they saw as important. So we had a public consultation period between the 1st of July to the 4th of August, led by the Special Consultative Procedure and Local Government Act. And from there, we had submissions granted and seen by Reporting Officer Ryan Mays, which was presented the hearing for the hearing panel's benefit, and then we heard from our submitters over one hearing day here in the chambers. There was then a hearing summary report which guided us through deliberations, and that really takes us to today. So I just wanted to outline the process, and again just echo Ben's thanks for being involved in the process. Really do appreciate that, and I'll just leave it there for any questions.
Thank you for that. And once I thank you for the process, very comprehensive and great to have the communities involved. I feel like there's a few stop starts at the beginning of this, and I think it was worth some of those pauses to reconsider what we needed to do, and have landed on a good on really good outcomes. So thank you to staff and councillors and our community for the involvement in this. Again, we've been through the deliberations. We've had similar process to the representation review and annual long-term plan, but today is a formal endorsement of this and an acknowledgement of the work done. It's been moved and seconded. Does anyone want to say anything? Elizabeth. Oh, sorry, Shane.
Really just a bit of thought really as we've been discussing this book and having our history workshops of Ngāi and Te Kumi. The document does reflect Tiriti or Waitangi, but I feel potentially that with the blessing of Mana Whenua, perhaps we should be referring more to Te Kumi as it is more relevant. So food for thought.
Thanks, Shane. Elizabeth?
Just a little bit disappointed that obviously we've retained all of the net zero, carbon net zero references in the document, because as I stated, I felt that was really quite limiting in terms of how that's comprehended by the community. It is there. Obviously, I'm just disappointed.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Malcolm.
I'd just like to put a big thank you to all those involved. This is a massive piece of work. I think, Tim, you started it way back. I just reflecting, I came back onto this council about 2005 and there wasn't any strategic planning happening at all. We're a deficit. I got involved in the Greater Christchurch Partnership, the UDSIC, and we started to strategically plan our communities within those boundaries. And we did our plans and we've grown from that. Now we've finally done the whole of Selwyn. This is, as you said, a 50-year document. I am so pleased to see and so proud that we've done it. And I look forward to the future as to how our growth reflects what's in this document. Good work.
Thank you. And with those words, all those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Thank you. The next item is the gravel reserves disposal proceeds allocation process, page 277.
Sam, I'd like to move that in option 1.
Okay. Thank you. I'll just seek a seconder for that. Malcolm, thank you. Thanks, Rob. Derek, what's yours?
Thank you, Koto. So as you know, acting on behalf of the Crown, the Council has been progressing the revocation and disposal of Crown Reserve land, mainly old or disused, unused gravel pits that are surplus to requirements. And real credit for this is due to the work and perseverance of Rob Allen and his team, and former team members as well. It's been a process over a number of years. So well done, Rob. The total proceeds from the sale of surplus reserves have not as yet been confirmed. But we're wanting to establish a process ahead of that happening in terms of an agreed framework for how the proceeds will be reinvested back into council reserve related projects. There are clear expectations as to how council must use the proceeds, and these have been clearly outlined in government policy as well as the deed of agreement that was signed between council and the Department of Conservation in 2021. And so the purpose of this report is hopefully straightforward, that it is reinforcing the expectations on how council is spending those proceeds under the deed of agreement, and it's delegating decision making to elected members. So in terms of option 1 in the report, the recommended option is for a subcommittee of council on the basis that these are internal funds available for council reserve related projects. The recently established community grants panel is identified as an option. However, and I apologise that this isn't covered in the report, it is highlighted by staff that the community grants panel is set up to deal with external funding requests, whereas this will be an internal process with internal funds. And I do just have one correction in the report under section 4, which I think is on page 275 to highlight. And the first bullet point was listed as purchasing or acquiring land for reserve purposes. And this should actually read more generally as being in accordance with the conditions identified under clause 7 of the deed of agreement, as I outlined earlier. Essentially, the deed of agreement allows for the spending of existing reserves for enhancement or development as well, not just on purchasing new land, as well as allowing for the establishment of conservation covenants on public or private land or access agreements and the like. So otherwise, I think the report can be taken as read, but I'll hand over to Rob if there's any additional comments you wish to make.
I don't think so. I think you've covered it all, Derek, so well done. Thank you.
Thank you. So option 1 is a committee being assigned to deliver this, and the current Economic Development Committee that we've just approved has investment and disinvestment as a part of their remit. So we could use that committee, or we could set up another committee to do something, but it seems to me that that would be the right place to have this work dealt with and allow those people to make those decisions. Maybe we add that, between how others feel, but maybe we just add that, well, start like that, and that'll be the pathway. We don't need to add it to the recommendations. Any questions of the team on this? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Thank you. You're well done. The next item is tab 15, page 283. It's the public initiated waterways closures. There's 3 recommendations: approve the closure, does not approve, and B and C forms a hearing panel of 2 councillors to be nominated to hear and consider those. And if we approve C, let's include the names of those 2 councillors today.
Kia ora koutou. So presenting on the waterways closures today, I'm going to take the report as read and recommendations as Sam has mentioned now. So any questions, please?
Lydia.
I don't specifically have a question, but I mean, I'm happy to move A and C. I would like to propose an alternative to B. The alternative to B is that actually the Minchin's Road closure should be considered as part of the whole Sheffield scheme closure that is happening in the background at the moment. It is part of that process for the whole Sheffield scheme, and my feeling is, and that it should be included as a whole, so we have a whole picture of what is happening in that area, so that we can consider all things when we're talking about strategic water races, the residual network, ecological sites. I just think the whole thing needs to be looked at in a big picture, and that work is currently happening with staff at the moment. So that is my proposal, really. the other things that are sort of hanging on the side of that is that in 2016, we signed an agreement with CPW around stock water supply. And I think that needs to be incorporated into the work that is currently happening behind the scenes as well. So instead of looking at piecemeal approaches, I think it needs to be taken as a whole.
So would that still be then we don't approve the closure, but ask that this length of race be considered as part of this other work?
Yes, that this length of race be included in the Sheffield closure that is currently being assessed. So effectively, I want to take this off the table.
Okay, can we just hear from Kate and Elaine what difference that would make and how that fits in with the process today?
So this closure has been included in this pack because it was applied for separately as well with the Sheffield closure. So we were processing it as we would typically for any closure. But I think if we defer this decision to go to this Sheffield closure, would be in favour of doing that.
So we could just not have a B at all. Yes. Then you have just bought A and C becomes the B for today and B drops off for now?
Yeah, that's fine with us.
Lily, do you have anything else?
No.
Deborah?
Thank you. I actually support the removal of B for that particular reason, but I'm just looking at the closures and our strategic planning and our strategic water races. I think they were last reviewed and looked at in 2012 with regards to the mapping. You'll see there's a lot of green water races still there. They're actually closed with the map, so it doesn't actually give a true picture to my mind of what our water race flows are currently at throughout our district. And it just seems that we've gone through a lot of closures that are piecemeal, death by 1,000 cuts. With regards to B being removed, I would like extension of that report to come back if staff are going to work on this particular area, that we come back and we work on the whole of where we were with our water race mapping, what's actually been closed, where we're sitting with the ecological reports. There's a lot of time gone under the bridge since 2012 when this mapping was first undertaken. I would really like to understand a lot more, even for a panel to understand a lot more, what is left of this water race mapping if you actually take out all of those that have actually been closed over the period of time to give a true picture of what is actually left.
Thanks, Deborah. That might be a piece of work that we undertake as a strategy for council, but for today's decision, I think we're just dealing with A and B, or the new B, unless someone wants to have B included in there. I think the only reason we might is that provides staff with some direction to include it in that wider piece of work. So if there's any clarity that what we've taken out would actually provide you, we can look at it. But if you're happy that it's gone, then that's great. Thank you, Deborah, for those words. Megan?
Kia ora. So I just wanted to understand B a little bit better by removing it from the decision today and putting it into the Sheffield closure, what the role of Mana Whenua would be, because both Ngāi Tohuriri and Taumatua have been really clear that they oppose the closure of the water races. And what I've observed over the last, particularly the last few weeks when it comes to water, there's been some really complicated discussions going on over the land drainage network and not knowing when to engage with Mana Whenua, which brings us into a process that we actually have to oppose rather than work collaboratively with the council. And so I just wanted to know if there is a bigger picture for the Sheffield closure, then are Mana Whenua going to be able to participate or have a voice in that? But also I will confirm Mana Whenua's position is to oppose the water closures, because I've been really clear in putting that in writing.
Sure. Kate, do you want to talk about the process and how that fits?
So the Upper Sheffield closure will follow the same process, which includes consultation with partners and stakeholders.
Sophie.
Yeah, I've got a similar question really. I was basically trying because I don't know a great deal about the Upper Sheffield waterways closure process, and just really wanted to know what the impact of taking B out would be, because we've got some pretty impassioned submissions on both sides here. Some for economic reasons want it closed, others are highlighting biodiversity and flood relief, and they're both important. And basically, it's not just about replacement of stock water. And I would just like some assurance that if we take B out, that isn't going to get lost somewhere in the process, and that it won't suddenly immediately make it more likely that this race is closed, regardless of what submissions say.
So taking B out of the report shouldn't have an impact, like you say. The benefit of taking it as a whole area approach is that we can see that if one small portion is removed, as we are here, you can't see the impacts necessarily as easily across that upper scheme. Whereas you look at it cohesively, you can see what impacts it will have across not just that part, but the wider scheme together. And then we can better deal with the effects from many different perspectives.
Other question, if that's okay. Obviously, we've had people submitting on this particular one already. If we move it to that other process, do they have to go through making those submissions again, or do they just have to maybe take a look at the wider information and just maybe amend their original submission? Just because in terms of time and resources and everything, like they've already done it once, you don't want to actually reel out the next few hours to do it again.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I would be in favour of taking any submissions on this closure into the next submissions on the further wider closure for that reason.
Thanks, Sophie. I think it's a good approach to take because their submissions so far have been on that. And they may want to come back and broaden their submission if it's about something slightly different, but for some of them, it'll be specific to this individual piece of race. So you'll need to take that into consideration as you take them over. Grant.
Oh, I just want to support Lydia in the process and rather than taking a piecemeal approach as this is suggesting, this comprehensive approach is certainly the way forward, where you get all views put on the table at one time and you get a comprehensive outcome which can include a number of mitigations or a number of outcomes, rather than taking all of a sudden you've only got limited outcomes because you've cut pieces away through. So this provides us to provide a comprehensive outcome package. Also noting there's quite a bit of infrastructure up there which is end of life as well, which really needs to be considered as well as part of the process.
Thanks, Grant. We need two members to put their hand up for this. Nicole and Sophie, I haven't talked to either of you, but you were part of the One Water strategy work that's gone to date, and so consideration of the wider impacts as has kind of been discussed today. I wonder whether you would consider it. I don't know what the time increments are, and staff might be able to help us with that.
We don't have a timeline set for when the hearing would need to be, but obviously as soon as possible is helpful for us, but that's not always realistic this time of year as well. So
I don't mind doing it. I think I was on the last panel, so I've done one before, so I'm happy to do it again.
Yeah. Are you happy with that, Nicole?
Well, Sam, could I speak to that before you, Nicole? I mean, with respect to those two councillors, I think you definitely need someone on there with agricultural knowledge as well. And, I'd suggest that maybe Lydia or someone who's in the environment should be on that panel, because there's a lot of agricultural knowledge required as well as part of that process as well.
Can we definitely have three? It doesn't have to just be two people. I wonder with the location of the work though, and your connection to that place, it might be easier if it wasn't you. But if you want to do it, that's cool. But I just think sometimes it's easier to be an advocate for a position without needing to, when it's in your own patch, making these decisions.
So I guess the locations of what would be going to a hearing panel are not what I'm directly involved in. Okay. So there would be a difference if it was the Sheffield closure, because it is very close to home. But for those, I don't see a conflict as such, and I can probably provide quite a lot of knowledge and background for the panel too.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
Yeah, I just felt it was kind of jumped in there with a couple of councillors without actually giving an opportunity for other councillors to put their hands up. I'm happy to put my hand up for this.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Does anyone else want to do this with? I think so. I don't really feel.
Sam, I would, but I feel it's probably a conflict, but I shouldn't.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Grant. I don't think we need four. So maybe just over lunch today, we'll figure out who those people are. We don't have to make a decision right now. And we'll get back to staff with who the named councillors are. Cool. So moving A and B, and just take out the names from the recommendation. It's a new B. It says moving A and C, but in the minutes it'll be recorded as B because we're not moving the second and staff's recommendation for B, confusing as it is. Does anyone understand paragraph 1 and paragraph 3 are the two that we are moving the second and all those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Thank you. The next item is new designation for educational purposes Far West Farringdon School. There are two recommendations here. One is to the Minister of Education about the notice of requirement and delegates something to the Chief Executive. And I'll just note that today, although I don't think that we should change the names sitting within the recommendation because they refer to a designation process and I don't want to overcomplicate things, but just for the community's and our council's awareness, Caroline Child, the Director of Education for Canterbury, messaged me this morning, sent me a letter this morning, which I'll add to the minutes of this meeting, to inform us that the establishment of a new full primary school year 1 to 8 under Section 190 of the Education and Training Act 2020, the school to be named Te Rau Horopito, is planned to open in Arbor Green in January 2026. So it's the same school that this is referring to. Its name won't be Far West Farringdon School, but it is for today's recommendation because that's the process we're in. But from the Ministry of Education, they have highlighted the name to be Te Rau Horopito, and the board, in working with its partnership with Te Taumutu Vernanga, have generously gifted the name, and the board has accepted it with gratitude. So thank you to Taumutu and to the board of that school. And I just thought for clarity of today's decision, when you're thinking about other conversations in the community, this is the same school. I'll hand over to staff.
Yes, assuming you got a chance to read my report on the recommended condition for new designation for school was an Arbor Green subdivision, previously known as Farrington Oval. Just want to add, as Mayor Sam explained, that 2 days ago a new name was proposed to be named Te Rau Horopito, which is a gift from Te Taumutu. The name refers to a plant whose spiritual and Maori significance due to its resilience, benefits to mankind. Worth mentioning here that the process of a new designation, council only sends its recommended conditions to the minister, and the minister is the decision maker under the RMA. I recommend endorsing the suggested recommendations and the new name that were developed in collaboration with the ministry and our road cleaning safety team and Andrew Maisie strategically transport. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Reverend Seconder for the report. Thank you, Sophie and Phil. All those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Thank you. That brings us to the end of the public portion of this meeting. We'll adjourn the meeting and come back in PX at 11:10. It's going to move in seconder that we move into PX. Thank you, Malcolm and Deborah. All those in favour